got hemlock growing next to watercourses and lake shores, injecting the trees is your only option if they're infested with Hemlock woolly adelgid, HWA. And so in this video, we'll be reviewing some of the methods for injecting trees, and we'll also be looking at drilling methods, because no matter how you choose to inject trees, you're going to need to know some basic drilling techniques for getting the product into the tree. My name is Donna Crossland. I'm a forest ecologist, and I'll be helping you get to know tree injection today. There's some advantages to injecting trees. For starters, it's the lowest possible environmental and human exposure method that you can use. It's also not weather dependent at all. You can treat during rainy days or windy days because you're directly injecting the product into the sapwood of the tree. Injection works by placing small amounts of product. It's called a micro injection. In fact, you use a drill, you place a small amount of product inside the sapwood of the tree where it's carried upward in the flow of the sap and out into the new shoots of the canopy of the tree where HWA is feeding. And so it's a very, very good technique. There are a number of different products that can be used to inject trees, and so that becomes a choice based on cost, based on speed, and we'll go through a number of those options. And we'll take a deeper dive into the Ecoject system, but this is not an official training that the company Bioforest would offer you, and you'll probably have to take the official training if you want to order this product yourself, but this will at least give you an idea of how it works. Before we begin, you want to make sure that you're wearing your PPE that we discussed in a preceding video. So I've got my gloves and my glasses on. I've reviewed the product label for Arborjet, the product that we're using today, and we are familiar with the system. I've had the official training. So we're filling these 8 milliliter canisters that we'll inject into the trees. So to begin, we'll take a filter because the forest, especially when we're out there filling these canisters, as we would be, you'll need a little screen on your funnel. You need a funnel so you won't spill the product. You'll notice that I always double contain my product, so even if it does spill, it's going into a bin and not into the environment. And so we'll take the cap off the Arborjet, and we'll pour some into the cylinder. The cylinder we're going to pressurize. You can use a scuba tank. I'm using an air compressor, just a tire compressor. So we're just going to screw this on, making sure it's not cross-threaded. So we'll just put them off for now so the system is totally closed. We've got roughly almost a liter of product in there. Now we're just taking a simple tire compressor. And we've got this little quick connect system here. The important thing to remember now is to open the lever so that the air is going to go into the cylinder to compress, and we're going to aim for between 100 to 150 psi, which is what is indicated in the manual. And so I'm actually just going to set this at 140. I find 140 works quite well. And we're only filling a few canisters today. Here we go. So now we've got this pressurized to about 140 psi. We can turn this lever off from the air supply. We could even disconnect it if we want to. Now we're going to open the line to what is called the loading gun, or the filling lever system. And you'll notice though that this line is not primed. It's not full of product yet. And so when we open it, you'll see it just actually became this beautiful pink color of Arborjet, but there's some air in the line, so we will just take the cover off our product bottle and just put some of the product in there just to make sure that the air is out of the line. You'll notice that I always put the cover back on any open container of product. Always, always, always make sure your product container is closed so that if it tips over in the forest, it's not going anywhere. And now we're ready to begin loading. So here's our 8 milliliter canister. We're going to mate the canister with the loading gun. And you'll see there's a little pin on the end. This is why we need to make sure that nothing falls into the cylinder from the forest, because everything has to shoot out through this little tiny pin, which is a very small diameter. And so we're ready to fill. You can't overfill these. It only goes to 8 milliliters. You can see that this system of loading 8 milliliters at a time goes fairly quickly. And so you can actually get even a double manifold or even one with 4 ports. That's one of the advantages of the Ecoject system, is that you can actually inject a lot of trees in a relatively short amount of time. In fact, we've done roughly 300 trees in a single day with a team of volunteers. Okay, so we've got our bucket full of canisters filled, and so now we're ready to go out and inject a few trees and get the job done. We started this video late last year, and now we're resuming, now that it's spring, with the injection, which is a perfect time of the year to start treating trees, just when the conductive tissue of the tree is conducting sap upwards into the canopy very rapidly. And so with injection, we're going to place the product directly into that sapwood or xylem, and it's going to be transported up. We call that systemic treatments of the trees. So off we go. So here we are beside this stream, this beautiful stream, and absolutely need to inject these trees next to watercourses to keep the health of the stream as well as the health of the tree in good order. We've previously measured the diameter of this tree using a diameter tape, and we see that the tag says 35 centimeters. So, yes, 35 centimeters. So we take the tag off. That means for many of the injection systems that we use, including the Ecoject system, and also the Q-Connect that you'll see later, is we take the diameter and we divide by 5 to get the right number of injection holes. So in this case, we would take 7 injection holes. The next thing you need to do is examine the tree and look for good placement of injection holes. You have to avoid damaged tissue, any scarring, and avoid the valleys in the tree. The root bases, the root flares, are excellent conductive tissue for getting the product up the tree. Although some people do inject, especially on a large tall tree, they just inject at waist or chest height. But if you really want to be sure you're getting it into the tree, and especially if the tree is hollow, you're safer to go down to the root flares. The drill, you need to maintain a nice sharp drill bit. You've got to use the right size that matches the injection system you're using. And you need a nice smooth in out, and not over drilling the hole, because you'll just widen the hole and you can damage the wood cell tissue, and you don't want to do that because it's what's actually going to help conduct that product upward. So here's a root flare, and we'll make our first hole here. And so we're using the Ecoject system for this. This is just a little nozzle that's going to convey the product inside the tree. Then the next one, quite often I use just a hand width from thumb to finger to find a good placement for my next hole, but ultimately we've said we need 7 injection ports in this tree. And we just slip it on to the seated nozzle like that, and the tree does the rest of the work. And so we can see the product is all finished there going into the tree. So we strip the tree and we're all done. The Ecoject system is the system we used at Sporting Lake that you may have heard about. The unfortunate part is that these canisters are about $15 a piece. They're quite expensive, and they're only useful for 30 to 50 cycles. And so then they have to be replaced or rebuilt. So that's a consideration. This is a more expensive venture in terms of injecting, but it's a very, very good one if you can afford the setup or share the costs with some neighbors who have hemlock. If you just have a few trees to treat, you may want to invest in just a cheaper instrument, QuickJet, which is kind of a handheld device produced by Arborjet. When using most of Arborjet's gear, you've got to decide whether you're going with use of plugs, and that would require you to use the Viper tip, which is a little very fine injection point, or the Stinger tip, which you just put directly in the tree without a plug. The plugs provide added insurance that the product is going to remain in the tree, that it's not going to come out, particularly for your urban tree settings and along sidewalks and so on, treating trees. There may be a preference for using plugs. In this wildland setting, there's a preference to not use the plugs because it really is an extra step in the process of tree injection, as well as an added expense. So we've got to change our drill. It's a larger drill bit. And then we use this plug setter made directly by the company. And the trick with setting the plug is that it has to go just between the cambial layer and the xylem tissue. So it takes some practice to get it just the right depth. And as you can tell, some of us are better at hammering than others as well. So this you get better with practice. So the QuickJet has been primed. You can see the product into the feed line coming from the product bottle, which I've attached to my waist. And we have product, as you can see, inside the syringe. And the syringe is set. The handy thing is I can turn the dial here and adjust the syringe for however many milliliters I want to put inside each drill hole. So here in this case we've set it for 4 milliliters. So we're going to pierce the septum. And now we're ready to just do a steady, even squeeze of the product into the tree. And here we go. So this might get hard on the hand. So now we're pulling back so the syringe refills with another 4 mils. And since we want to inject 8 milliliters into this tree, we'll go again. The second round may be a little harder to put in than the first. We've got the product all in the tree now, and so we can pull this back out. And here we go, all done. So this product is perfect for the small landowner who's just got a few trees to treat. It's only a few $100s versus another system that may be several $1,000s to use and maintain. These plugs cost about $1 a piece. And so if you want a cheaper option, you may want to change out your tip and use this Stinger tip, which is a plugless system. It's a viable option. A step up from the QuickJet is the QuickJet Air, which is basically the same idea with a syringe system, but it uses pressurized air that Arborjet has placed in a little, it's actually a paintball gun canister. So this little canister you pressurize, and that will last you for a whole day of injection out there. Then we bring the product in by just pushing this button. This system is a bit more complex than some of the others because you do have to have pressurized air, either stored in a scuba tank or by a compressor. And Don Grossman from Arborjet is demonstrating the QuickJet Air as it comes from the manufacturer and using the plug system, which is a bit more work because you've got to set the plugs. But what I've got here is a modified quick jet air, which I learned from our friends in Michigan State, which I've modified myself. And I've put the product bottle and the compressed air in a backpack. I've got the product cable coming out, and I can stand up and put this on my back and inject in comfort for a half a day at a time. Typically, you would have a partner go ahead in front of you and drill the holes. I'm just going to drill a couple here so that you have them ready. And once you have your line primed with product, you put in your stinger head, or in this case I've got an even larger head on here. Put it in the hole till it fits snugly in there so that there's not going to be any product leakage. And then hit your syringe and in goes the product. And that's the quick jet air. Another option that's a bit cheaper, and there are people that love this system in the US, is the Q-Connect. And it's sort of like an IV system for trees. As you can see, there's these are the injection ports that we'll put in the drill holes of this tree. They're called little T's. In front of me, this tree is a 49 centimeter tree. We'll need 10 injection ports. You want to make sure the T's are snugly in the tree so they don't leak product, and make sure they're switched off until you're ready to inject your product. I'll put in a few more and you get an idea of how it works. We have the Q-Connect product bottle, and this is the filling port. We take this off, and we've pre-measured our product based on the diameter of the tree. And we pour, I'm just going to take it off and pour it over our little spill berm here. Pour this into the bottle. So this system takes a little bit of pressure, but not as much as we saw with the quick jet air. But we're going to pressurize with just a simple Schrader valve on a standard bike pump, just the way they come from the store. Attach it. There we go. We've opened one of the ports behind the tree, the farthest from the filling station, because that's what's recommended. And then we're going to open this valve. So now I'm just going to give it a little bit of pressure, about 15 to 20 psi. And that's good. You open all the valves, and then I'm going to just pressurize to top it up, just to make sure all the product has gone into the tree. The Q-Connect is easier on the hands than the quick jet that I demonstrated earlier, and it's a less expensive alternative than the quick jet air and the Ecoject systems. Another system that you may have seen online or heard about that's relatively inexpensive are the ChemJets. So you just buy these individual syringes, you just drill a hole the right size, and they have a very heavy-duty spring, and that's what helps coax the product into the tree, into the vascular system. I would caution you to practice first with water before you use your product. Your product is very expensive, and you certainly want to take precautions of putting that in the environment. And it really takes a strong hand to pull back on these syringes if you were doing many per day. The ChemJet is relatively inexpensive. However, I do have some concerns about the loading process, putting the product into the syringes and getting them into the tree, that there's more risk of accidental exposure to the environment, just mostly because there's a very heavy-duty spring there that can accidentally allow the product to be pushed out. We've just shown you 5 of the many injection systems that you can choose from to treat your riparian hemlock that line our rivers and streams in Nova Scotia. All of them have pros and cons based on cost, complexity, ease of use, speed in which you can inject, and so you will choose whichever system is right for you, and you'll be well on your way to becoming a guardian of our riparian hemlock forests.